No, go ahead, Farah.
Okay, thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'na wa yanfa'na bima alamtana wa zidna ilman. Allahumma irna al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna itba'a wa irna al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Ya Rabbi ighfir warham wa anta khairur rahimin. Sallallahu Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa atba'ihi ajma'in wa alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ameen. We are continuing our discussions on the 20th Flash. Sorry if I got 20th Flash, right? Yes.
Yes.
We read through the second cause in our previous discussion, or up until the second cause, including a discussion on various verses taken from the Quran to help us understand the background or the context in which the author has understood the concept of sincerity. Up until now, we have, if I were to summarize in my own, from my own point of view, how we've approached this topic, it started out by understanding sincerity as a concept in principle, as a universal principle, along with sincerity in the context of religion or in the context of worship. And then we also proceeded to understand insincerity as expressed in practical matters, as they were studied through the Quranic verses. We describe sincerity as a principle that applies to the human condition as a practice or a concept that states that a sincere action is one that seeks to fulfill the requirements of the order of the universe. Very simply, a sincere action is one, for example, is one, let's say somebody wants to grow a tree. A sincere effort in doing that would include following all the requirements needed for that tree to grow. The care, the process, the tools, the responsibility, the monitoring, and so forth. And thus, a sincere action is rewarded in its product or the result that one receives from it. Someone sincerely, as in completely following the requirements of the action, should see the reward of his sincere efforts in the form of a tree that perhaps bear fruit. We discuss sincerity in the concept of worship as the concept in which an individual recognizes that in every part of the action that they execute, they return the action, or they respond or acknowledge each and every part of that experience back to its rightful owner, that being the creator of this universe. And so for whatever action that they take or execute, attaches acknowledgement throughout that process, from its conception to its fulfillment, to the fact that it is being done in accordance with acknowledging or with the purpose that this is to acknowledge the creator of this universe. We then moved on to understanding in sincerity as more of a practical matter expressed through or taught to us through Quranic verses, through several Quranic verses, and I'll just sort of highlight some of the important points we discussed from the last couple of weeks. And just as a reminder, this 20th flash leads from a question that brings up a certain condition as observed amongst non-believers and a condition observed amongst believers. It describes what the reason could be for this situation to exist, and then follows to provide advice or ways in which those who believe in a source of existence to their life, what they must do, or advises them to what they must do in order for them to safeguard their sincerity and not to fall victims to unnecessary competition and matters of what was described as false dignity. So there were several verses discussed teaching us the ways one can approach situations or the attitude with which one can approach circumstances that exhibit this understanding of sincerity, or actions that perhaps cultivate sincerity amongst believers. And some of the important themes that we discussed included the fact that teachings of the Quran strongly encourage us to be forgiving and pardoning in case of conflict or differences in opinions and approaches. They encourage an attitude of reconciliation as opposed to attack. They advise or teach an individual to attack or address ideologies instead of personhood or individual personalities. They encourage kind behavior toward disagreeing, or respectful behavior when disagreeing, and is also demonstrated to us by the example of the Prophet, particularly in observing the example of addressing or having a stance against ideologies, but not really ascribing particular acts or behaviors to particular groups and tribes. And furthermore, depending on the authority or the position that one finds themselves in, to use that authority and position in order for to act out of that particular place of authority and what one can do in that from that particular place. So that covers general themes of the past few discussions, and we have one verse of the Quran that has been that was left for our brief discussion, and that's that's chapter 24, verse 22. And we'll finish that last discussion briefly on that last verse and move on to reading the third cause and any remaining discussion from the second cause. So if Hamim can pull up the verse, chapter 24, verse 22. And if there are any comments or questions at this time, feel free to raise your hand. Thank you so much, Fariha. Okay. So the verse in translation says, "And let not those of virtue among you and wealth swear not to give aid to their relatives and the needy and the immigrants for the cause of Allah. And let them pardon and overlook. Would you not like that Allah should forgive you? And Allah is forgiving and merciful." So, based on where the discussion had trailed off from last week, there are some very obvious similarities and sort of continuation of the message that asserts or encourages one from their position to be, to create ease and to create opportunity for reconciliation and pardon for someone else, or someone of an opposing or a different ideology. And so this verse clearly calls upon those with a certain sense of position or authority or knowledge, whatever that might be, to, in this case, it's very explicitly calling for pardon and overlook, but that's something that we discussed in the form of reconciliation. There was an example given about relating to a hadith that I recall now. Like, if somebody is in a position of a judge, then in that position, they should use that position to enact a law or a decision that sort of encourages others to perhaps follow or understand what they are, believing to do so. And so whatever that advantage that one may have, to use it in order to create ease and not to create any sort of conflict or disagreements, or perpetuate them with those of opposing ideas or ideologies. That's sort of like a very obvious sort of like understanding, and I would invite anybody who perhaps wants to add more to this understanding of the way that they might have understood this particular verse in the context of the discussions on sincerity. If there is no particular hand at this time, we can go back to the second cause and just see if there's anything additionally to be added. And if not, then begin reading the third cause. If you can go to the page following. So the points towards the end, in order to, number 6, in order to preserve truth from assaults of falsehood, to abandon the self and its egoism, and give up the mistaken concept of self-pride, and cease from all insignificant feelings aroused by rivalry. Fariha, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum for Asim here. I just want to go back to the previous page. So I'm going over the number 3. And I just wanted to see what the comments are from other friends here. So he says, to adopt the just rule of conduct, that the follower of any right outlook has the right to say, and in quotes, it's my outlook is true or the best, but not that my outlook alone is true or that my outlook alone is good. So the alone part is in the second phrases, right? That's being used so that to not to just make it that this alone is the thing that is worthy of to be the truth, and the others are just discarded, thus implying the falsity or repugnance of all other outlooks. But just to me also, even the first phrasing, my outlook is true or the best, to make that statement claim, it's kind of hints a little bit to me that, hey, my outlook is the best. It already like underneath implies that, I feel that this is the best for myself. But I would think a clarification phrase or something might need to be added, that to my understanding, this outlook works for me is the best. Or maybe this truth basically is relative to me. So I just wanted to see what others have to say. If that's one, and then we can go on the next one also. I had a question on that too.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with you. It requires a certain sense of explanation because they can be read very similarly. I can attempt, and in the meantime, let people gather thoughts. As I try to, justify, I guess, the first statement, my outlook is true or the best, I can also read it, well, as opposed to saying my outlook alone is true, it appears to me that the word alone restricts any possibility that there could be that there are many ways, as many people there might be, of getting to the truth. It says that there's just one way, and we all, or each individual, follows that one particular sequence of events. For example, or I'll give an example later, whereas my outlook is true or the best reads to me as if it says, for me, as you pointed out, a sense of relativism, for me, this outlook is true or the best. But if I were to say my outlook alone is true, then I would say the one that for me is true is the true period for everybody else. So that's one way I look to justify this, that the first statement says, for me, it is the best, but for you, there could be, you particularly can have your own that can be the best, and only as far as you can judge yourself and be critical of yourself can you make that statement. But no one can really make the statement that my outlook alone is true, only because of the fact that everybody has individual, unique experiences, and there is no one combination that would lead them to the truth that applies to every nature of the human being. But every human being individually must have the best way for them uniquely. Are there other thoughts on how people are taking issue or reconciling this particular statement? And Asim, the floor is also open to you for seeing if you develop any additional thoughts or wanted to add something. I'm trying to think of an example that may apply to this. I think about something like, let's say, somebody drawing a painting, and one can say, having done to themselves a good job, let's say they studied a lot, they used all the right materials, and they worked hard, etc. And at the end, if they do feel like, they did the best that they could and followed all the rules and procedures and however that they were taught, they could make the claim that this is actually the best painting that they ever drew. But they may not be able to say, or they definitely cannot say, that my painting alone is the best amongst all the paintings out there. It's entirely impossible to make such a claim. But from their perspective and how far they understand their process, it might have been the best that they could have seen being produced. Faria or Asim, please go ahead.
Yeah, so, if I look into this third point, and I think we've sort of went over it in the previous discussion as well, it seems that as far as I'm concerned, for me right now, whatever makes sense, I go on with it, but at the same time, I'm open to other viewpoints and perception as well. But just like within my given state here and now, so this makes sense to me, and so I will proceed with this without devaluing any other outlooks. So just wanted to chime in on that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for adding that point, because it helps relate to some points that the author makes later on also, is like attaching, or has made throughout, is that perhaps if someone did claim that my outlook alone is good, does attach some sort of personhood or a sense of ownership over it, whereby they will not be open or to questioning it, letting go of it, or respecting and being inclusive of the fact that there are other methods to go by it, including that they too could be improving in different circumstances. So there's a danger or a risk of being prideful or egotistic if one does claim that what they did could not be improved, for example. So with that, we can go on to the next point. And Asim, if you have a question regarding, please feel free to raise it at this time. Go ahead, Asim.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just wanted to see if we can talk about the relationship between union and sincerity, how that ties in. So, and also because it's tied to the union based on the truth, people of truth. I feel that's very important also. And that's why the whole section, I feel how the author is putting it, based on the question that this is something that is going to be beneficial and necessary, and the verses that we studied in the Quran also encourage that behavior, because right now the biggest threat, as I think the author also sees, is the notion of atheism that is prevalent, and even the taken for granted kind of religious beliefs. So that is an interesting point. I feel that he talks about this union with the people of truth and making that part of the sincerity.
do you have any initial thoughts about how you may relate union to sincerity? And I agree with you that pretty much the first two causes that we've read thus far do encourage or give advice around those, along those lines of the need to come together under the fold of Islam, as it said in the previous point. So did you have any thought on union and sincerity and the connection between them? Go ahead.
So I guess we're all thinking out loud here. Yeah, this point, I was thinking that if I have the same worldview as you, then where can we go wrong, or where can I be in conflict with, with the people of truth? And yeah, I was just connecting this back to Asim's comment on, elaborating further on the author mentioning union here and how does it connect with sincerity. So I was just wondering about that as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Ali, you have your hand up, so please go ahead.
It is a difficult subject because the author is talking about the attitude that the people of guidance, I think that was the people of truth, take. Now, people of truth means there is truth. Yeah, sure, there is truth. But sometimes, as Asim touched upon this point that I wanted to share with you, claiming that there is the absolute truth, the only truth. So if we say that there is only one absolute truth, that is correct. There must be one absolute truth. But if we are not careful about it, our affiliation, our connection with the absolute truth is different from the existence, even the necessary existence of the absolute truth. The necessary existence of the absolute truth, which, for example, this universe is out there, it needs a creator. It seems to be, for a human being, someone may say, not the creator, but every existence needs a cause for this being to exist. Whether somebody doesn't believe in the creator or not, but at least among the people who accept that there must be a creator, the existence, necessary existence of the creator consists for these people as the absolute truth. That is fine. I agree with it. I think that is correct. For among the people who claim that, who understand and confirm that there is a creator, there must be a creator, is the absolute truth. The existence of the creator is the absolute truth. I understand this. But we have to be extremely careful. Our affiliation, our acknowledgement of the absolute truth is a different subject, because absolute truth, by definition, has to be absolute. If the truth is absolute, no one can ever claim that this person has encompassed the absolute. What remains now, definitely and inevitably, because of the nature that we have as created beings, I may acknowledge, but as the people of truth, let's say I acknowledge that there exists the absolute truth, which is the existence of the necessary being who created this universe. Okay, but my comprehension of this absolute truth is bound to be limited to my capacity. So according to my capacity, I can see the absolute truth and acknowledge the existence of the absolute truth inevitably within my own capacity as a created being. I am not an absolute truth, so that I cannot claim at all that I encompassed, I comprehended in its entirety the absolute truth. That is where the problem rises. Relativity, relative claims, no one can claim to hold the absolute truth, etc. This kind of argument comes in when the relationship between the person and what he claims that there is an absolute truth. We have to be very careful, and we have to be modest enough to understand, to acknowledge that we are created beings. So my comprehension of the necessary existence of the absolute truth is limited to my capacity, where relativity comes in. But we have to be careful. That doesn't mean that the necessary existence of the absolute truth is a matter of relativity. There is a fine point. I'm sure it is understandable. I'm sure you are comprehending it. You are understanding what I am saying. It is not difficult at all. But in practical terms, if someone attacks me or quarrels with me, or if I get engaged in a debate with somebody else, and he may say that, oh, that is your truth, and good for you, but I don't agree. Then we say, what do you mean? The existence of the necessary existence of the Creator is absolute truth. What I am saying is nothing but a God or the Creator God exists. So what do you say? Why do you say then attacked me that my wordings or my claim is relative? But we have to be careful. We have to be modest. Even if I say I believe in God, my comprehension of God is bound to be limited to my capacity. So I have to understand that if I work on it, my realization of the necessary existence of God, the Creator, I may have a more and more comprehensive understanding of the existence of the necessary being, who is God. It means even within my own self, I make progress or degradation, whatever the way I take. If I don't think about it, if I leave it alone and ignore it for years, my comprehension of the existence of God diminishes or becomes narrower than before. If I work on it, it increases. It means my capacity of claiming the absolute.
Please continue, inshallah.
Yeah. The item 4, and also the sincerity is related to the subject. We have to, I have to go back to there. Item 4 says, union with the people of truth. Now, if union with is the cause of divine succor and high dignity of religion. Of course, the main point was discussed in item 3, but we passed on it now. We passed to item 4. Why the union with the people of truth is at risk if there is no sincerity. Now, if we can understand sincerity in terms of my relationship between the absolute truth and me, let's call this, if I acknowledge my position before the absolute truth, who is God, who is the creator, in as far as our subject is concerned, if I understand my position as a created being, as a fallible, limited capacity to, and as far as the comprehension of the absolute truth is concerned, then I will be sincere. But if I claim that because I said I believe in God and God's existence is absolute truth, so I am on the side of absolute truth, that damages the sincerity. And consequently, I have to say my outlook is the only true outlook. That becomes inevitable.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ali, I'm sorry. Can you please repeat that last part again? We couldn't catch it. As in, how do we lose sincerity?
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay, thank you. Try to rephrase it as much as I can, because it is a very sensitive subject. So especially the people of truth always claims the absolute truth, but we have to make the difference. Necessary existence of the absolute truth and my relationship with the absolute truth. Now, my relationship with the absolute truth is the point here, as far as sincerity is concerned. If I acknowledge my relationship with the absolute truth, who is God, that my comprehension of God, my belief in God has endless degrees, but never is fully complete. Because I am a created being, I cannot comprehend the absolute truth. That is sincerity, understanding your createdness, acknowledging your reality. That is what sincerity is. So I have to say, as far as I understand right now, I confirm the necessary existence of the absolute truth, who is God, but I have to be aware that this confirmation is bound to be limited with my capacity. That is what usually is missing. especially those people who believe in God, yeah, it may happen on the other side. Those people who believe in science and nature, they may say, we are the whole, we are the followers of the absolute truth, who is science, or which is science, or which is nature. That is their problem for the moment. Now we are studying the sincerity between the people of truth. So let's come to our area. Sincerity means, in this context, acknowledging your position. Acknowledging your position, that your comprehension of the absolute truth is limited with your capacity, and it fluctuates up and down as far as your attitude is concerned. What is left to us then? Because this number three is the pivot of every argument here. I have to admit, sincerely, in a modest way, yes, I say I believe in God. Yeah, yes, I say this is true, but I have to say according to me. So when I say I believe in God, it doesn't mean that the existence of God is according to me, but my acknowledgement of the necessary existence of God is according to my capacity. If we don't make this difference, we found ourselves to hold on the absolute truth as if we are the owner of the absolute truth, which diametrically contradicting to our nature of being a created being, created man. We cannot comprehend absolute truth, but necessary existence of the absolute truth is different from comprehending the essence of the absolute truth. I think we have to be clear about it. If someone understands that I cannot claim that my outlook, my understanding, my belief in God is the only outlook or the only way that I can understand, this is the only true outlook. What happens? This claim excludes the other people's comprehension of the absolute truth. What we do, we limit the existence of the necessary of absolute truth with our capacity. Put it within our capacity. If someone has the comprehension of the absolute truth at another level, above or below, we exclude that this person is also affiliating his understanding with the absolute truth within his capacity. That's why I have to be comfortable to say that as far as my capacity allows me, this is what I understand from the existence of the absolute truth. And this is the best understanding of absolute truth, but in inverted commas, according to my capacity. I have to admit that. If I don't say according to my capacity, I am claiming to be the absolute truth, which has comprehended, encompassed the absolute truth. That is very dangerous, and it damages the union among the people of truth, because everybody is unique within his or her own capacity, and everybody is sure about the existence of the absolute truth, but their comprehension of the existence of the absolute truth is limited with their own capacity. I think this difference this difference is important to notice so that we should keep the unity among the people of truth. Otherwise, there will be no way to keep the unity among the people of truth. Everybody will say, I am the follower of the absolute truth, and my way is the only way, because absolute truth exists absolutely, and I'm confirming it without realizing that my comprehension, my confirmation is limited by me. If I made this point clear, we can understand why there is a disunity between the people of truth and discordance between the people of truth, because of the lack of sincerity, not because of the lack of their confirmation of the existence of the absolute truth. Yes, I am confirming the existence of the absolute truth, and I am sure the absolute truth exists, but my confirmation is limited by my capacity, so that it may not be, most probably it is not 100% encompassing the absolute truth. Another person may be confirming the necessary existence of the absolute truth within his own capacity. He says also, I believe in God. The other one says, I believe in God, but they may mean different by God according to their capacity of comprehending the absolute truth. I think this is very important. I believe it is very important, and I pray to God that I will be aware of this. If someone says, I believe in God and I believe in Islam, okay, but I am Shiite. I am something else. This is what I mean with another title. I say, if I am insincere, it means I am claiming that I have comprehended the absolute truth, and any other claim of the absolute truth, comprehension of the absolute truth, is wrong. No, it is not wrong. It is according to his capacity. Yours is according to your capacity. So you say, according to your capacity, your claim to believe in God as a person who follows Shiite tradition may be right. That is for you. I expect that. But as far as I can see, my understanding, my comprehension of the absolute truth is the best, but not the only best. The best for me. Of course, I have to have some sort of security and confidence in my belief. That is why it is important to be able to say that, to be able to claim that my comprehension of the absolute truth is the best, but be careful, extremely careful, for me. In this case, I can say relative to my capacity. There is no way to avoid this reality. So we have to be very careful in order to keep the unity between the people of truth, not to lose the sincerity. That is why among the companions of the Prophet, most prominent ones were suspicious about their name to be listed among the hypocrites by the Prophet. Why? Did they have any doubt that the creator of the universe may not exist? No, the matter is not that. God exists, okay. My relationship with God is at risk because I am not absolute. Maybe I believe in God, but my comprehension of God may not be enough that I may be listed in or among the hypocrites. We have to understand, it wasn't the case that with the companions of the Prophet, that they believed in Allah, they believed in Muhammad as the messenger of God, that they were doubtful about it. No, no. Their sincere connection with this reality cannot be absolutely guaranteed. That is what they were wondering about, whether I am an hypocrite. But hypocrite, what does it mean? He believes in God, but his affiliation with the belief in God is shaky. Sometimes go back, sometimes come up. That's called hypocrite. Hypocrite, be careful. We have to be careful. Hypocrite never means spy. Spy, as far as the people of the truth is concerned, a person who doesn't believe that Islam is the true religion, but he pretends to be in order to gather, extract some information and use it for other purpose. He knows that he doesn't believe, but hypocrite is not sure what he is believing or not, whether he should be really 100% stick to this belief or not. But his attitude with the absolute truth is shaky, goes on and off, on and off. That is called hypocrite. That is why the companions said, we may be listed among the hypocrites because I may sometimes turn my affiliation with the absolute truth to the position of off, not always on. I may be negligent, I may be ignorant. That is what we understand, that sincerity is essential in order to be modest enough to keep the unity among the people of truth. So I have to say, look, my understanding is the best for me, but not the only best. Your understanding may be best for you, but ultimately, both of us believe in the necessary existence of the absolute truth. That is what our main point, where the Quran says, كَلِمَةٌ سَوَاءٌ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. The absolute truth that God exists is equal between you and me, but my affiliation, your affiliation may vary, where the relativity necessarily comes in. I think I spoke a lot, I know, but this fine point I kept repeating and repeating must be remembered in order to keep the unity among the people of truth. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for providing very helpful details in addressing this matter. I will sort of try and also summarize parts of what you said and then pose my own questions and follow up. So you made a very clear distinction between someone claiming to say that there's a necessary existence of a creator and someone claiming to have an understanding of what that necessary existent being is. In this particular points that are being discussed are particularly addressing the second part of the, or the second point, which is, okay, people can come together and seemingly agree or have a similar conclusion or the same conclusion in this case, that an absolute truth exists. They can agree with it and there's no issue in that. But no one can come and say that they have in any way an absolute understanding or comprehension of this truth, but rather they have to admit and acknowledge that being a limited created being, their comprehension of the absolute truth is limited to their capacity. And so that relationship will always be limited from their perspective and does not encompass the ways in which others can also comprehend the or comprehend the existence or the necessary being itself. And sincerity is this relationship between the absolute truth and me, and how well I understand my position as a created being. I will be sincere in admitting that I will never be able to comprehend the absolute truth, but rather it will always, it will be, because I will admit that it is limited in my capacity, I will make room or allow for others to also be able to make the same or similar claims that they too, in their limited capacities, have developed or understood or tried to understood the absolute, the nature of the absolute being or the truth in their life. And the concept of hypocrites being the one who may not be sure of what he believes in or what he does not believe in, and that his relationship with the absolute truth is, as you said, shaky, in which he is unsure of whether or not he is being fair to his relationship with the absolute truth, whether he's realizing the fact that is my relationship actually based on the fact that I am recognizing the position of myself as a created being, or am I in some way claiming that I know the nature or I understand the absolute truth in an absolute manner? If anybody else has any comment or question regarding what we've heard thus far, please feel free. I may want to take a step backwards and perhaps solicit a clarification from anyone in the group. When it comes to definite and make it a very practical issue, it is very true that for most of us, we're having experiences with both people who believe in the necessary existence of the absolute truth, and those who don't make that claim. But we're also sort of coming across individuals who are kind of like a mixture of this, and I'll say this in the way that people who perhaps are familiar with the concept of the existence of an absolute truth, but may not have are not actively claiming that they are their actions in or their life, nothing about their life or their word acknowledges that existence of the absolute truth. So in that case, when one does make arguments or engage some individuals on just the first part, on that there is a creator must exist, it is I want to understand for myself, where does the sincerity fall off in that particular part? Or in this case, I think we've discussed this before, it is understanding the nature of the individual that you're talking to, and adjusting your speech accordingly, or what you say to them accordingly, and the fact that you cannot change somebody's mind if they are not looking to seek the truth or understand themselves. But for someone to, for let's say, for someone to claim that there must be a creator in the world, or of this world, or of existence, I don't know if that is dependent on like capacity of a person, because in that sense everybody has the same capacity to conclude on just this first part, but definitely everybody has a variable capacity on how they understand the nature, or what their relationship with the absolute being is. So if I were to make it more succinct, is there a variable capacity when somebody claims just, or makes a claim to the fact that there must be a creator or a necessary being, or the fact that everybody has the same capacity to do so? And where can insincerity lie in that part, if we all have the same capacity in that case? That's one thing that I want to understand. And two, I guess, is I sometimes you addressed this in the fact that one can improve their position amongst or help in creating unity amongst the people of the truth by working on their own relationship with their creator, which you described as sincerity. And I can understand this point, that the more one understands and puts their relationship with their creator in the right terms by understanding their nature, the more they allow for an acceptance and sort of a agreement of the fact that people come with different capacities in trying to understand the creator. Whereas because I was wondering whether is it sometimes, and the answer will definitely be mixed, is it sometimes just a matter of one's ability to effectively communicate and navigate social situations? Is it a matter of skill, that one can have with their communication? Or perhaps it is actually one's relationship with how they understand themselves, and hence their creator, that makes someone help create unity with the people with people around them. I'm guessing obviously it's a matter of both, but I would like to also hear from others on how they might view this matter. And if something is unclear, I'm happy to rephrase, retry, or reiterate. Faria, please go ahead.
Farah, can you please reiterate your query and question again, please?
Okay.
Thanks.
So the first one has to do with the part where we can, when one claims, or anyone can claim, that there must be a necessary existence of a creator, is there room for one's capacity that plays in? For example, we talked about how understanding the relationship between or my relationship between my creator is dependent on my capacity and how I understand it. So I can never claim to know the absolute truth in its entirety. I can only know based on what my capacity is. That has to do with my relationship or my understanding of the creator. But if I'm just making a statement that there must be a creator, is that dependent on my capacity, on my individual capacity, or is that capacity universal to a human being? You know, there is nothing, is that, in my understanding, there's no variation in capacity to make that statement. Everyone has the same capacity to do so. So is there an opportunity or a place where insincerity in making that claim can come in? Go ahead, Freya.
Thank you, Farah. So I'll just take a very simple example, just like Brother Ali always use in these discussions. 2 + 2 = 4. I think everyone can be in agreement with that. There's no denying in 2 + 2 = 4. Now, how much am I convinced about this truth? I think it goes back to, like you said, it depends on my relationship with the source of my existence in terms of how much am I improving or developing my capacity to ascertain this truth. So just like in the example that there must be a necessarily existent one, a lot of people, I mean, are in agreement with that or can be in agreement with that, but how much personally for me do I ascertain this truth? I think we can all be sincere with ourselves in terms of whatever I conclude has to be based on my capacity as far as I've learned and developed it. I'm not sure if that answered it, but this is how I sort of understood your query.
I take it from your answer that, you know, that too also depends on how well have I personally, or, you know, an individual has on their own terms sort of made that claim, as opposed to, let's say, made that claim because they heard it. You know, I'm saying 2 + 2 = 4 because I actually went through the process to conclude it, and so can everybody do the same conclusion, and so one can be sincere that in that process of concluding also, that, you know, in a way it's similar to also making the claim or claim to your relationship to that understanding. I will admit this topic is got a lot of layers, especially because there are many practical situations in which it plays out. And my struggle is to try and figure out, you know, the principles that govern all these practical situations. But it is a very abstract topic at times. Dr. Ali, please go ahead.
I think we have to stick to this subject as far as our relationship with the ghaib, believing in ghaib is concerned, believing in the not physical terms. For example, if I say, I believe there are 2 cupboards in this room, the other one says, no, I don't believe that. This is not the subject of sincerity. Sincerity has something to do with one's connection with the unseen. It means what this universe refers to. Our subject is how do we establish the union, unity between the believers. Now, for example, if someone says, the universe existed by itself. There is no creator. Am I expected to establish a unity with him? No, because absolute truth, for him, there is no creator. Absolute truth, for me, there is a creator. I cannot reconcile anything between these two ideologies. They are diametrically contradicting to each other. So the unity is not subject there. The subject of unity comes in when I say this universe is a creator, and when somebody else, let's say you, say this universe is a creator. Now, do we agree? Yes. But how do we comprehend the creator? My comprehension, understanding of the creator must be different from yours. No two people are created in equal terms. My human capacity is different from human potentiality. Potentially, everybody has the spirit. Every spirit comes from God. But the spirit, the potentiality, needs to be worked on and needs to be transferred into capacity. So my capacity never ever represents my potentiality. Your capacity also never represents your potentiality, your spirit exactly in its full capacity. It is impossible because the spirit directly connected and directly coming from the absolute being. So you cannot put a limit, although it is created, but we human beings cannot put a limit to its capacity. Like we cannot put a limit to the universe. Although universe is limited, but we human beings cannot come to the end. It is that is why I am created, but I cannot come to the end of my potentiality. No one can. No one can come to the end of the universe. Now, after this, our non-existence started. There is no such thing impossible as far as the nature of this universe is concerned. So, unity or accordance or concordance, whatever you call, whatever the word is, unity must be among the people who claim that they confirm the necessary existence of the absolute being, God. Or among the unbelievers, if they want unity, they have to also acknowledge that there is no God, nature creates everything. Their understanding of nature varies definitely. They have to acknowledge it. Otherwise, they never stop conflicting each other. It is exactly the same for the believers. If I claim that my understanding of the absolute truth God is the only best one, then I will never ever have an unity, concordance. I think it is the word. I don't know if it is right or wrong. Concordance. Unity. I don't know if it's the right word or wrong word. I'm sorry. I can never have the unity between the people of truth because I am claiming that I have comprehended the absolute being, absolute truth. It is contradictory to my nature, to my createdness. So sincerity is important here, acknowledging that my capacity is limited to me, not potentiality. Then everybody's capacity is the same. No. For example, I don't know mathematics. I know only 2 + 2 = 4. Not more really. Maybe 3 × 3 makes 9 also. That's it. This kind of things. my capacity of understanding from mathematics is that much. And a person who studied mathematics, his capacity of knowing the mathematics is much larger than mine. So they are not equal. We have to acknowledge that no person can be equal in comprehending. That's why we have to have a flexible attitude or sincere attitude. What does it mean? I have to acknowledge that my capacity is limited and my comprehension of the absolute truth is limited to my capacity and related to my capacity, which is called relative to me. So the other person also claims that they believe in God, the absolute being. His also is limited to his capacity. We have to acknowledge it. When we acknowledge it, we can come together and unite in confirming the necessary existence of the absolute being. Then unity becomes possible only after being sincere. It means acknowledging, modestly acknowledging that a person is bound to have a limited capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. I think I'm getting a grasp of how this topic is being explained. And so far that we've discussed, I feel like there have been many dimensions of the same word that have been sort of described. There's a sincerity between a person and religion or their deen. There's a sincerity between non-believers or regardless of their belief. There's a sincerity between a believing person and one who doesn't believe. And then right now, as we were discussing, sincerity that creates concordance, which is, I think you were using it correctly. Sincerity amongst believers creates unity. Sincerity, I guess, amongst people, regardless of their belief, creates reconciliation and an attitude that is forgiving and I guess open and forgiving in this case, and a relationship of sincerity between one and oneself and their creator is the one that defines the relationship and understanding that someone has about themselves and existence. And if I see this sort of method in which sincerity being played out in many different scenarios, and the result of the sincerity, such as this result of sincerity amongst believers leads to unity. This is helping me grasp the topic a little bit better. And thank you for clarifying the fact that it's not a matter of sincerity, really, if, let's say, two people are disagreeing on the fact that, one believes in a creator must exist and the other doesn't, as far as the topic here is concerned. But rather it is when two people come together on that fundamental principle, agreeing on the fundamental principle, and then acting with sincerity, which is realizing their capacities, their limited capacities in approaching and understanding this common principle that they attest and confirm to. This fostering of sincerity should lead to unity, despite the different ways in which that they are approaching the single truths that they confirm. Host, can you confirm for us how much time we have left? Because we are technically on the end of the class time, but I know there were delays and things like that. So if you can confirm, then we can proceed accordingly.
It's 5:34 here, so usually we end at 5:30. I mean,
okay, that's fair with me. And I think we call on Mariam to help us summarize the discussion for today and help us understand it better through her perspective, inshallah. So ready when you are.
Okay, so I think we did the second cause today, right?
Correct.
Okay, so my first note for the second cause was when action is not best for everyone. There is one absolute truth, but if we are not careful, our connection with the absolute truth will slowly fade. Your comprehension to this absolute truth is limited. You acknowledge and comprehend this truth in your capacity. If you work for something, you make progress. This is how the universe works. If you don't accept that you have a capacity, you are claiming that you are the absolute truth. When you talk to a person, adjust your speech accordingly. Their capacity is different from yours. Your connection with your Creator depends on your capacity. I am created, but no one can come to the end of this universe. And that was my last note.
Thank you so much for helping us summarize the discussion for today. We really appreciate it. So with that, we'll end the session for today and inshallah continue our discussion from next weekend. Say the dua, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa akhiru da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha. Thank you, everybody. And assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you all for this wonderful discussion. Sorry I couldn't be here more this week. I hope to see you all next week.
Inshallah. Look forward to it.
Inshallah. Thank you.